Welcome to the Somewhat Frank podcast, hosted by entrepreneur, author, and investor Frank Gruber, and joined by entrepreneur, lawyer, and investor John Guidos. After each having successful startup exits, these two college friends cover a wide array of the latest trends and topics in tech, startups, investing, entertainment, and life. You'll notice they like to live life to the fullest with lots of adventure and believe in celebrating those important wins along the way. The podcast is produced with the help of Established, a strategic consultancy focused on corporate innovation, entrepreneurs, and the ecosystems that support and elevate them. Now it's time to be somewhat frank. Let's get to it.
Everybody, and welcome back to the Somewhat Frank podcast. I'm your host, Frank Gruber, and I'm joined today by my longtime friend, colleague, and fellow entrepreneur, Johnny Guidos. Johnny, how's it going?
Going well, Frank. Thanks for having me again.
Of course, you're part of the cast. But today we have a special guest, my partner in life and business. And I was going to say crime, but we don't do any crimes, so I guess that's not part of it. My partner in life and business and my office mate, Jen Consalvo. Welcome to the podcast today.
So happy to be here, guys. I've just waited for this moment for so long, and it's finally here.
It's good to have a new person on board here. Excited to hear some of your insights, and also keep Frank, reined in a little bit too. He has a tendency to kind of go off on talking about UFOs and Bigfoots and all those sort of things. So excited to
I love it. How do you know I won't do the same?
That's it. Actually, that's a great point. I don't know. Maybe you guys are a two-headed monster over there.
We'll see.
All right. So we've got a lot to talk about today. We want to do it in a relatively timely manner. So let's start out with our celebrations. We've got a lot to celebrate the last couple weeks. It was Global Entrepreneurship Week. And of course, as entrepreneurs, we're excited to celebrate. But really, Entrepreneurship Week should be every week. And then on top of it, followed up by the president just recently went out and named National Entrepreneurship Day, November 16th, which also recently happened. So lots of celebrations around entrepreneurship. And bottom line is, if you're an entrepreneur, it's Entrepreneurship Day or week every day.
Yeah, I have a question actually. Jen, Frank, you guys have been involved in this, field for decades at this point. How do you define an entrepreneur versus, your other business person that's involved in business elsewhere? Just curious. I don't think I've ever asked you both this.
What do you mean? What's the definition, or how do I define it?
Either one.
Yeah. So I think entrepreneur is somebody that is starting and running a business. That's how I look at it. I don't know. You can be entrepreneurial, but I think you have to basically have a business or something you're trying to start and with a vision.
Yeah, I agree. I think you can be entrepreneurial, and a lot of people mix that up, right? So you can be entrepreneurial in your approach when you join another company, and that's amazing. We need that spirit everywhere. But an entrepreneur, in my mind, is someone who actually takes the steps and takes some level of risk, right? So they're going out there, they're spending money, they're utilizing resources, they're building something that didn't exist before, and bringing something new into the world.
I like both of those.
I would have to agree with that. Yep.
I've met people in the past at like a dinner party or something like that, and just, casual encounter and asking them, sometimes comes up like, hey, so, what do you do? And I've received the response from people, oh, I'm an entrepreneur. And that can mean so many different things, right? Yeah. So I was just curious what y'all thought it.
Yeah, the name, the word has been used a lot for different things. So, I think that it encompasses that entrepreneurial spirit, but ultimately when I think of an entrepreneur, it has to do with, actually, like Jen mentioned, putting a little bit of risk out there, putting your neck out on the line to do something to, improve life, improve the world, something of that nature. Anyway, all right, let's keep moving. We've got a lot to talk about. So we had a huge lift this week. Our entire established team did an amazing job with producing this, as well as with the SBIR team over at the SBA. We produced the inaugural Innovation Ecosystem Summit on the 15th through 17th of November. We had amazing speakers from Kathryn Finney to Steve Case to Victor Hwang, and a number of folks from SBA join us, as well as a number of other folks from the ecosystem, startup ecosystems. And we have over 1,000 people attend. So videos will be posted soon. Really thankful for our team, and obviously very proud of our team, the way they execute on that. So want to make that part of our celebration here, as we sometimes you have to pat yourself on the back too, because that was a heavy lift.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I know there were a lot of sleepless nights on our team getting that done, and I think it went off without a hitch. I think a lot of people received a lot of positive feedback, and I think took a lot of value from those meetings.
Yeah, and it was kicked off. It was kicked off by the U.S. SBA administrator Guzman. So that was pretty cool too, to have somebody that directly reports to the president kick our event off. So pretty good stuff. All right, so moving on. A friend over on the West Coast, Andrew Warner, has got a new book. He's been doing podcasts as Mixergy for over a decade. Really well known in this entrepreneurial space with his interviewing and interviewing styles. And so he wrote a book about how to interview, and it says it's actually called Stop Asking Questions. So you can go over to stopaskingquestions.co and learn more about how to interview better and what to ask and what not to do. And check it out if you ever wanted to learn how to interview people better. So that's out there. John, you got one that you wanted to add? Go on, jump in.
I did. Yeah, I have one this week. So at Properties, which is the largest residential real estate brokerage in Chicago, and got to know them very well during a company I founded years ago called Turbo Appeal in Chicago. They were our first real large investor and channel partner, and really great, and had a lot of friends over there. They're headed up by Thad Wong and Michael Golden, and they recently, it looks like they're partnering, or they struck a global deal with Christie's International to work on their international real estate dealings. So that's a big win for them, and congratulations to everybody at Properties. I saw that come across the news feed and was pretty excited for all of them.
Yeah, that's great. And they're not, it's so amazing. They started as just such a Chicago-based real estate company, and now they're global and they're doing real estate kind of everywhere. So that's an amazing story. So great. Thanks for bringing that up. Jen, you got something going on over there too, celebration happening.
Yeah, I just want to throw a big shout out to some longtime friends of mine, Jodie Howard and Lisa Lewis, Southern Maine, starting a business together called Togather in Southern Maine. And it's part of a whole revitalization project in this the city very close to us called Biddeford. And it's on the river, and it's a beautiful spot, and it's going to bring all kinds of people together for different types of health and wellness courses, classes, etc. And very excited for both of them in this new venture.
Wow, that is exciting. Together. I like the name. I'm a big brand person, so I think it's clever, and I like what you can do with that.
Well, and it's fun to actually work with people who are doing a physical business again, because we mainly work with people who are who create online companies, right? Software or some type of hardware, where they're producing something. But to have like a brick and mortar business again is really fun, and I get to be involved in some ways, and get to stretch my own muscles in how to help them out and work with them on this venture.
That sounds like fun. All right. So next up, we've got one of our portfolio companies from Established Ventures. We're really excited about is Solo Funds. They were our startup of the year in 2020. They're out of LA, and they basically raised some money recently, but then that's not what I want to share is they started this thing called Solo Causes, and they are helping underserved communities out there with their mission, which is it's always been the same, is to help give back through partnerships and actually help users and give back. So they partnered with Habitat for Humanity and the United Way, and they got written up in People Magazine and for their efforts, and we can share the link in the show notes here. But excited about their efforts. They're very mission driven with what they're doing, and so want to make sure we give them a shout out.
Woohoo to Travis and the team! Very excited for them.
All right, moving along. We've got a lot to talk about here, trying to figure out what's the right order, because there's a lot. But I feel like the one that I think that just bubbled up that we were just talking about this morning, and it's kind of most I guess front of mind because of we talk to a lot of startup founders and entrepreneurs and do a lot of office hours and things of that nature. Is there's an article out there about funding. It was written by Crunchbase, and how there's just this obsession with with venture funding. So it's called Founders Stop Obsessing Over Venture Funding. And it was just posted like a couple days ago, or maybe a minute even today. And it really talks about how, the metric now is I've raised this much versus like I've actually sold a product, or I've created something of meaning, or I've changed the world. And so I think it's good for everyone to read, because I totally agree that it's become like such a clickbait / vanity metric for people to be like, hey, I raised whatever. And if you think about it, if they get on that treadmill, if you go out and you raise like, $280 million or something, $250 million, you're basically on this trajectory to be a unicorn. You are a unicorn at that point. And then obviously next thing is you probably would IPO. And so there is this, potential race to get to that number. It's a big, heavy lift to do that. But if you grow obviously a meaningful business, and you probably could get to that. But the idea I guess I'm getting at is it's become this like, like, I don't know, like badge of honor kind of thing. And I'm just curious on your guys' thoughts on it, because you both have raised money as well.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's obviously something that's celebrated, but I don't know, having gone through it myself, I never looked at it as the end point. It was always the starting point. And additionally, trying to be, I think that you need to be conscious of the people that you do include in your round and on your cap table, because you are allowing a lot of new faces to be involved with your business. And sometimes, the old saying is having too many cooks in the kitchen, right? So you can have people involved in your business decisions and trying to influence the way that you run your business based off of, taking their money, right? And raising that round. So it's obviously a method that a lot of companies need to thrive. It is something to be celebrated, but I think it's just a starting point, and it's a lot of responsibility that you take on when you are a fiduciary for other people's funds to grow the business.
Yeah, exactly. And there's some really good points made in this article about how funding can actually change the way you look at your business and the decisions that you make. And so you really have to think about that. And it's hard when you've never done it before to really understand how it's going to potentially change your decision-making process. This is, like you said, this is an obligation you're making to the investors themselves. And they might have very different goals than you. They've got to make outsized returns. And, maybe what you're trying to do with your business, you'd be happy with, let's just throw in there like a $5 million exit, $10 million exit, whatever it might be, but you're aligning yourself with an investor who needs to make much larger returns. You need to think about those things. And I think the other thing is, so many businesses now don't necessarily need to raise funding. There are many businesses that do. And if you're trying to grow and it's the specific space you're in, or the capital expenditures you're going to have, yes, it might make absolute sense and you have to raise capital, but there are many who don't. And I think we've gotten away from talking about all of the other options that are out there. So that gets me excited. We were just talking to an entrepreneur the other night and talking about how, maybe a small loan might actually work for their business because of the traction they have and the assets they have. Maybe there are other types of debt type options that could work for you. So yeah, I think it's a really important article, and it's important for people to have those conversations about what is really important for your business, because venture capital is not right for everyone.
Yeah. And I feel like you always have to kind of really dig deep in your gut and realize what can I handle from a risk perspective, because not everyone's cut out for this. And there's so much risk and stress that can go into running and starting a business, especially like we bootstrapped for 6 years or so with Tech Cocktail back in the day. And those were days that we were comfortable with the risk, and we were comfortable with how the cash flow was going. We dipped into all of the savings and 401ks that we had to keep it going, and then eventually took funding. And the minute we did, it changed the trajectory and the focus of what we're actually trying to do a little bit. Like initially, it didn't totally change it, but it really lit a fire under what we had to do to grow, and ultimately pushed us in a direction of a certain way that we probably wouldn't have gone if we hadn't raised. So I think it's interesting for anybody to really dig deep and figure that out, because it's a different answer for everyone. And obviously be careful. There are a lot of options, as Jen mentioned, but there are also a lot of bad options. There's companies that literally stood up like predatory kind of loan situations for small businesses and startups. and they'll give you the money right away, and then if you don't pay it back right away in a certain way, they can take your business. So there are things to be careful of, and that's why we love solo funds so much, because they're trying to help do something like that, not predatory, but giving creating a marketplace for people that needs like loans, not for business but for personal use, in a way that's like really non-predatory, and by letting other people kind of loan money. So anyway, I think it's a really interesting topic. I think you should definitely check it out if you're thinking about getting starting a business, or thinking about venture funding, or already are in the game. It's a treadmill that you basically, there's a couple of ways off. It's to exit, IPO, or fail. So,
and Frank, I think Jen brought up a really good point that I haven't thought about for a long time, and something that I experienced was, when you're dealing with high net individuals that are going to invest in your company, and maybe they have money on them or their company's on their balance sheet that they need to invest, right? When they give you money, some of these people aren't looking for your 20x return or something like that, right? That's not exciting to them. I mean, they're looking to invest in these unicorns that are going to make them, 1,000x return or something like that. And that's really the only way that they're going to be happy. I mean, most of us, I think, on this call would agree that a 20x return is a pretty, exciting, return on your investment. But some of these people, I mean, they want to retire off of their investment with your company. So it's something that's also that a lot of people don't think about. But, if you're taking on capital and your company does well, you may ultimately run into something like that.
And definitely if you're working with a VC firm, because they have LPs to answer to, and those LPs expect returns.
Absolutely.
Yep. We all have bosses at some point, right? And that's VCs have bosses too. So it's just the LPs and folks that are investing in them. So, all right, let's move along to kind of another area that's a little bit, it's on the money side, but a little bit bonkers. Have you guys been following this, this NFT space and the whole, I know we've done some things and talked about NFTs before. I minted a unicorn a while back. And it never sold, by the way. It's not been, I'm not a billionaire yet off that NFT. I'm surprised by that as well as you are probably. But it is still out there if anyone wants to bid, if you want to check it out. But what I wanted to refer to is there's this whole like ecosystem that was built around cartoon apes. It's I don't know if you've seen it yet, the Bored Ape Yacht Club. And it's like $1 billion ecosystem around these NFTs that are basically cartoon characters, apes, and people are using them now as their like profile images and things because they've bought these NFTs. So anyway, really interesting situation over there happening. It's not the only place that only show in town with NFTs. You're seeing like major sporting sports teams and things minting NFTs, and kind of everyone's getting in the game. So I just want to get everyone's kind of temperature on their thoughts around this kind of an ecosystem.
Oh,
Sure,
boy.
well,
Go ahead, Johnny.
I was going to say, I'm interested to see how this industry evolves, because I do think it's going to be around for a while. I don't think its current state, this is just for whatever it's worth, right? My opinion, you asked for it. So I think it's going to be around for a while in some form or fashion, but I don't think we really fully understand what that looks like yet, because like there is value in NFTs. This isn't new necessarily. I mean, the technology behind it might be, but people have been buying and collect things for a very long time now, right? And so this is just a new spin on it. So I don't know. I'm interested to see how it is. I'm very conservative when it comes to these sorts of things, so I haven't really jumped fully in yet.
Yeah, I think, I look at it kind of like cryptocurrency, right? And that for the majority of people right now, it's just not something that feels like a reality in their life. It is, I think it's important to watch, but we're not quite there yet in terms of the ability for it to be as mainstream. The killer apps that make it a little bit more approachable for people. It still feels like, kind of like the art world, right? The most of us, yes, we might buy some pictures, we might buy a painting here or there, a dabble, but we're not collectors. So I don't know. It's like right now, there are so many people, there's so many, it reminds me when I think of an NFT, I think of their early days of Clubhouse, when someone would jump into every single room, no matter what the topic, and just start talking about NFTs. And it started to feel a little bit slimy. And I do believe, like you said, John, I believe there's something there. I believe there's value for some people, but I think there are also a lot of people who are losing money and trying to jump in on something that they just don't understand yet. And, just so many people who just get involved and just don't see any kind of return.
Wait, what, you're saying that my NFT is not going to sell?
Let's just, for the audience, in a moment of education, and we'll take some ego out of this, say, what was your return on investment? Because there's a cost. It's when you create art and actually post it as an NFT, there's a cost that you as the artist have to spend, you have to pay. And at the end of the day, there may be a net loss to people. So I think that's an important thing that people don't talk about.
Oh, it's definitely had a cost. I mean, but think about it. It's interesting. Like there's a cost to post it, but there's also a cost if I was to create a piece of art on a canvas. I have to get the canvas and I have to get the paints and I have to try to figure out where to sell it and figure all this stuff. So I think there's that too. So it's just now made it digital. Like literally that's been digitized, if you will.
It's easier to just swipe your credit card and throw your money away.
Yeah, it is. And then collecting all of those things and creating your own gallery. But anyway, it's still out there. It's on OpenSea. We'll see what happens with it. It's not getting a lot of eyeballs lately, but we'll bubble it back up. Maybe we'll put it in the show notes if anyone wants to look at it. And so, yeah, so there is science though that proves that most NFTs are worthless. So if you think of it, kind of similar like any collectible, right? It's only as valuable as somebody's going to pay for it. And so really that's what this whole thing is kind of built. But as you all mentioned, it really is turning into the situation where a lot of what's happening right now is exciting because it is like the future of the web. Like people are building architectures and building things that will, push forward e-commerce and push forward the different ways that we transact and interact with the web online. So I think that to me is kind of the thing that's going to come out of it. There will be a lot of people that do make money on this. There's gonna be people that lose a lot of money on it probably. But at the end of the day, we're all going to learn and something new will happen from it. So I think that's what's most exciting about it. All right, moving on along. We've got a little more time here. I thought this was interesting because we've all been working from home for how long now? It's lost track. A couple of years, I feel like. And so other governments, the Portugal government actually passed a law to help remote workers out. And so basically, there's this like new law where you can't contact workers. Bosses, are banned from texting employees after they sign off from work, and as well as outside of work hours. So it's kind of like creating boundaries because we're all borderless. What's the right word for that? Boundaryless? I don't even know if that's a word. Make that up. Look that up, Johnny. Is that a word? Anyway, the idea here is that we all are without borders because we're always on the internet or on some device or have the capability of being connected with. So what are your thoughts on it, guys?
Boundaries. I have mixed feelings about it, right? I think it is important for people to have some boundaries because it's certainly we've seen this, right? That there were some people at the beginning, companies. I was pretty shocked by this actually, when people were first starting to work from home at the beginning of the pandemic. There were companies, I'm sure there probably still are some, who forced employees to have their cameras on every minute of the working day. And to me, that just is like the biggest proof of, lack of trust, no personal space. I mean, it just feels like such an invasion of privacy. Like you wouldn't even feel that scrutinized if you were sitting in an office, right? Like people will walk by your desk, but usually don't have someone sitting there feeling like they're staring at you or there's a camera on you the whole time. So, in some ways, yes, it's good. Like let's help people have those boundaries because some companies clearly abuse it. On the other hand, I feel like they're depending on the work, right? Depending on the work that you do, sometimes there are those cases where you have big projects and, you've got to have flexibility. So maybe you're working late hours, but then people are going to take a few extra days off. How does that play into here? I don't know enough about the specific laws to know if there's some flexibility for those types of situations. But I've seen people who put in their email address and bosses who say, hey, I noticed you just emailed me. I'm not online. I don't expect you to be either. I think those kinds of things can be nice sometimes for employees to really feel like their employers care.
Yeah, definitely. This specific law in Portugal, if your boss does contact, an employee outside of work hours, they could face financial penalties. Basically, they could potentially be, on the hook to pay your gas bill or your electric bills because they've now contacted you in your home office, quote unquote, air quotes. So basically, that's the penalty for basically doing that in this other country. And I'm curious. I don't know if that would ever fly in the U.S. Because of the way that we all work and nonstop, but it's interesting. It definitely helps with a little bit of a healthier work-life balance. And it is there's a flip side to it too. As an employer, obviously you want to make sure that everyone has a healthy work-life balance, but you don't want people to take advantage of it either. So I don't know. It's an interesting new law. All right, so we'll move along. Do you guys want to talk about aliens, or do you want to talk about a tugboat?
I'm good with either.
Kind of random topics, but there is this. I think let's talk about the tugboat first. There's a drone tugboat that actually we're investors in actually through NextGen Venture Partners. So I should probably caveat that. It's a company called Sea Machines out of Boston, and they basically have created a tugboat that has made 1,000-mile voyage around Denmark. So 1,000-mile voyage, and it's autonomous. So pretty cool. Autonomous tugboat, and it can move around on its own. So that's pretty innovative, I'd say. This Boston company, has been testing vehicles for a while, and they've done a ton of stuff in the Boston Harbor, and they made this voyage. So I think it's pretty interesting. I think we're going to see a lot more of this kind of stuff, especially think about going across, some of the seas and things. It's dangerous.
That makes sense to me, honestly. If you think about it, it could revolutionize logistics to some extent, and then also just geographically, the oceans are so much larger and probably less opportunity to at least collide with other vehicles, right? So I support it. I think that's pretty great. And as you know, Frank, and Jen, I'm a huge drone nerd, so I like utilizing my own drone as well. So that's pretty cool, and something I didn't really think about before.
So I should caveat it. They did have when they were in narrow channels, they did have two people on board that kind of guided it through like certain areas, but for the most part, they controlled it from their waterfront conference room in Boston. So that's pretty crazy.
I love it. I mean, especially on the ocean where you were talking about, like, whether it's unsafe conditions, I could imagine rescue missions, exploration in areas that have just maybe been deemed unsafe, whatever it might be. It feels like there's such a huge opportunity. And the oceans, Frank, you and I have talked about this a lot in the past. I feel like people are more excited about exploring space, which, I personally love too. And we've done far less with our oceans. A vast part of our planet has been unexplored, and maybe this can also help in those endeavors.
Yep. And speaking of vast places that were unexplored, let's go towards the universe. Our next topic is the alien topic. Not really alien. I guess it is kind of alien topic. There's a scientist. He's from Harvard University. He's basically come up with a theory that he thinks, his name's Avi Loeb. He thinks that human beings were created by an advanced technological civilization in a lab. So he did an op-ed for Scientific America. So literally, these are not like, I'm not putting this on like some random site. This is like Scientific America. And he says, was our universe created in a laboratory? And he's basically suggesting that aliens created a baby universe using quantum tunneling, and explains this whole theory behind how we were created. So really want to blow your mind, you should read that article because it's like pretty crazy. So I always like putting these out there, just getting people to think about these things. It's not like I believe it or one way or the other, but it does push your boundaries for sure.
Yes, I used to love, I don't know if you ever watched this, but it was called Through the Wormhole. Do either of you remember that show? Sure. So good. Yeah. So good. And same thing, they would have these scientists and physicists, all kinds of people on talking about all these, various theories of the universe. And I just love being able to step outside of, what we do day to day and just stretch our minds and think about those things. And when you really listen, it just kind of opens up a whole world of possibilities. And I like that. Just the notion of that anything is possible, and we really don't have our arms wrapped around that. So
anything
very
is
exciting
possible.
article. Very exciting article, Frank.
Yep, absolutely. Anything is possible. And, check it out if you haven't. And we're going to move on. We're going to move on to our next thing. We got a bunch of upcoming things or events happening. We had a big announcement recently. We announced that our Startup of the Year Summit is coming back in person. It's going to be in Tampa, Florida, in partnership with Embark Collective and sponsored by ReliaQuest. And it's happening on January 25th through 27th. If you're interested in checking out, the summit, you can learn more if you go to summit.startupofyear.com. We're excited about bringing it back in person and bringing back the energy. And of course, we're going to do it as safe as we can possibly do it in pandemic times. So looking forward to that. And we're going to have 100 companies there, plus a bunch of great mentors, judges, and investors and thought leaders and great speakers too. So check it out.
I am so excited to go to Tampa. No, it's going to be a great event. We haven't announced all of our speakers yet, but we've got some really big announcements coming up. And I think once people hear them, they're going to be really excited about it. All right. So next up, I do want to share, I think you guys have shared this in the past before, that we've worked with NASA on their NASA ITEC program. It's their startup innovation program, one way to engage with entrepreneurs. And they have a NASA ITEC program event coming up December 8th and 9th that everyone can watch from the comfort of their homes at, let's see, if you go to nasaitech.org and register there, you can watch along. We'll have 10 great companies pitching to NASA technologists.
But you're not going to be in your home, in your comfortable home.
No. We're actually, this is one of their first events back in person as well. It's going to be down at NC State. So I'm going to be flying down to Raleigh for that event.
Nice. And then coming around the bend after the new year as well, we're going to head back to Las Vegas for the Consumer Electronics Show. CES, we've got a pitch event we're producing actually in partnership with the Consumer Technology Association Foundation, as well as AARP Innovation Laboratory or Labs. And it's a really interesting challenge again. They're looking for companies. They're going to be giving away some money, actually $3,000 for the winner and for the judge's choice. Jen, what's the topic this year? Did they announce that yet?
The topic this year, Frank, is Disruptive Solutions. Let's see. Disruptive Solutions, helping homes become smarter, safer, accessible, and fun at any age. So really, that's a pretty broad topic. It may seem specific, but if you think about it, you could stretch a lot of different technologies to fit into that. So again, thinking about people as they age at home, how do they help their homes become smarter, safer, accessible, and fun?
We'll be in Vegas. It's going to be fun. I haven't been back in a couple of years. It's been a while. I used to live there, so it's kind of crazy, but it feels like a lifetime ago with the pandemic. So good stuff coming up. All right. So we've been doing a little bit of reading. We've got a couple books that came out recently. The next book after Delivering Happiness is Beyond Happiness, and it's by Jen Lim, and it's a Wall Street Journal bestseller. We did a whole event with her, Beyond Happy Palooza last month, and it was a fantastic event. So if you haven't checked it out, I think they're going to be releasing some of the videos and things over on her website. Some great people involved. It was a lot of fun. And then also another Beyond Diversity, which is by Rohit Bhargava and Jennifer Brown, just came out this month. And got Rohit. He's been a speaker and been a part of our Start of the Year community, as well as been on different podcasts that we've hosted. So excited about that. And if you actually can check the book out. It's a guide to anybody that's looking to kind of push beyond diversity and kind of gives you some actionable things of how to kind of basically what you can do at your business, and it really should be something you should check out. And it's got a number of different topics, and about 200 different people have weighed in, including myself. So a little self-promotional plug there. I'm actually in the book a little bit based on a conference that was hosted in 2021 where a lot of the content was pulled from. So good stuff happening. And then I know we've been watching a lot, a few things that just popped back on. HBO Max has been crushing it again with more stuff out there, more content than you have time for. But like Succession, we wait for that to happen every week. And I know that's a favorite, as well as John. What have you been watching?
I've been watching in the same line with you guys, with you all, with HBO Max. I've been watching the new season 11 of Curb Your Enthusiasm, which is always just It's just hilarious, right? It's stupid fun. It's something to get your mind off of your normal everyday life. So Larry David's just awesome, and he's a Mark Twain of our time, I guess. So I've been enjoying that very much.
Yes, definitely fun. And then just if you need a show that if you're like working on, so we've been working on putting a lot of late nights lately with like the different things we've been up to. And so if you're kind of working on your laptop and you just need kind of a funny show to kind of watch in the background while you're doing something, it's not something you're probably going to think that I would like. But if you go to Netflix and you watch Working Moms, it is hilarious, especially if you have children or if, I mean,
but you don't have to be a parent. I think it's just hilarious. And it's some of the episodes are so wrong, but it's just one of those shows that just cracks you up.
Yes,
I haven't seen that one yet, but I'll add it to the list. But
there's 5 seasons, so you can just kind of, and they're really short, so you can kind of like get through a couple real quick, and it's funny. So check that out. And then obviously, we obviously like to watch Morning Show as well, which comes out every week.
Yeah, I was wondering what you all thought of the newest season of the Morning Show. I've watched both seasons now, and just curious your thoughts on it without giving away any spoilers.
Well, I don't think this is a spoiler, but I do like and appreciate how they've incorporated so far, how they've incorporated the pandemic, and how they sort of slide in news that is, they keep it true to reality in terms of the news that they're covering. So, like that they're going through the election, and they bring in, actually the stories that you heard. So I appreciate that about the show. I'm really enjoying it. I think I'm sure it's controversial, but I appreciate how they bring topical issues that have really been at the forefront of our society into the show in a very interesting way.
Actually, that's a great point about the topics, the timing of like certain things. It's actually good memory for us, because I feel like all that stuff happened so quick, and we were in this kind of like, I don't want to say chaos, but just reactive mode of dealing with like the pandemic and, the election and, the Black Lives Matter, Black Lives Matters, and, all these different movements happening at the same time. And so I don't want to say we forgot about it, but it all kind of blurred together. And so it's nice to kind of see the progression to kind of remind you, oh, that just happened. And that was a crazy year kind of thing. So that's been something that's been good. But obviously the show portion is interesting too. So check it out if you haven't. And I think we're out of time, guys. Thank you for joining today. Somewhat Frank. It's a special edition of Somewhat Frank. We've got Johnny Goodtimes Guidos, who's been with us for a while. And then Jen Consalvo joined us, special guest. Thanks for joining us today, Jen.
Thanks for having me. I thoroughly enjoyed every moment.
As well. Thank you, Johnny, for being here as well. And obviously everyone for listening, and we'll be back soon with another podcast episode for you.
Thanks for listening to another Somewhat Frank podcast episode. Be sure to rate and subscribe wherever you listen to your podcast. We'd love to hear from you. Don't forget to celebrate your wins, small and large, with gratitude. It will make your journey more enjoyable. We'll be back soon with another episode.